has come along.
In the rain, I hear your voice calling. I see you running through the grass, calling out to me. Is that the sense? Where are you now? Looking back at the way things used to be, I see your smiling face and I recall the times we had. As the tear rolls down my face, your voice reminds me that I must be strong. I mustn't lose my faith. I feel your love surround me. I feel so safe in your embrace. To see your caring smile, I close my eyes. Where are you now? I need your heart to love me now. Your arms to hold and keep me warm. Your words to guide me on my way. To comfort me when I feel down. To help me face my troubles on my own. I live my life to honor you. My dreams are thought to see them through. I'll cherish all the memories of the love we shared. I'll carry you in my heart forevermore. Need your heart to shine around. Your love to shelter me from the storm. Your words to guide me on my way. To comfort me when I feel down. When my whole world's turned upside down. You delivered me back then. But where are you
I ask Christ to give me the courage to do the job you have appointed me to do. And I need your help because I cannot do it without you. So let us put our minds and our hearts together and work for the common good, work for the development of Portsmouth, the development of Dominica, and the development of the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
As a manifestation of his vision, he espoused the values championed by slain civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King, for whom he had a deep affinity. Part of this was realized when Martin Luther King III paid a special visit to Dominica earlier this year for his inauguration. This song was performed by a Louisiana jazz band and was dedicated to the Prime Minister.
I can't see him to dedicate a song to. There he is. Mr. Douglas, this song is for you. My love has come along. My lonely
We live in a dynamic world, and we as Dominicans have to open our eye to the realities of the modern world. We're no longer in the Cold War. We cannot live in the Cold War. Our history is important, but we cannot live in our history. We have to be looking forward towards the dynamic situation in the world, take advantage of it, and allow that advantage to be able to redound to the benefit of the people of Dominica. To come to New York, but I felt I would return to New York when I was going to return to Canada. I would include New York. Because as you know, when I was deported from Canada back in 1975, I told them then when I was being deported that I would only return to Canada as the Prime Minister.
Portsmouth have made to Dominica. Remember, this Rosie that we're talking about really made his name on the international stage long before he actually made his name in Dominica. This is the guy that fought for, he is the biggest black power advocate that Canada has ever seen. This, you know, now this is a major thing. We may not realize what that means, but as someone that lives in North America, let me tell you something. To know that Martin Luther King led the Black Power struggle in the United States, where I live, and that Rosie Douglas led the Black Power struggle in Canada is a major contribution of Portsmouth to the world. And we have...
tribulation en Canada. C'est un moment là, ça en fait connaissance à nom là, il a crié Monsieur Rosie Douglas. Son nom grand bonnet, il était goumé pour black people, pour nègres, pour malheureux. Guadeloupe goumé pour malheureux. À United States, il goumé pour malheureux, pour nègres. Et combat aussi au Canada, c'était pour malheureux, pour nègres, pour l'idéal. Rosie, chaque fois nous sommes sortis ensemble, Rosie a mis les mains en poche, il a passé, il a vu poisson qu'avant, il a acheté 15-20 kilos de poisson, il a dit nous, il a porté ce bassin-là, il a distribué poisson tout partout. Là, il passe son côté, il voit viande, il a acheté viande, il a dit bon, portez bassin là, paix bouche, d'autres dan, il a passé, il a déposé. Rosie, tout ça a été ni, il était qu'à point pour le peuple là. Rosie, tout ça richesse, il était béni à pas de taille, c'était un peuple là. Rosie pas travail pour lui, pour lui faire poche lui. Rosie travaille pour le peuple là. Il gourmet pour le peuple là. Oui, Rosie et moi, nous sommes prêts comme ça, mesdames, messieurs. Force à autres jusqu'à là. Les enfants Rosie Bouzin, force à autres aussi, tout le temps jusqu'à présent. Quand Rosie gourmet, bah on le monde. On pas même ça si t'es ni temps gourmet pour petit mounaï, mais gourmet pour l'autre petit monde. Alors, petit mouna Rosie, ces enfants autres, ces enfants nous, oui, Rosie Douglas, mais j'aime, Rosie Douglas, vivant, nous voyons à Portsmouth, viva Rosie Douglas! I never, viva Rosie Douglas!
to live in our hearts and the people of Dominica, that the time and resources he diverted from we, his family, were invested in you, the people of Dominica. We must continue to hope for a better future for our children and work together selflessly to achieve the goals which he held us at his highest priority. The struggle continues, forward ever.
Esteemed friends from all over the world who are here in sympathy with us tonight in Portsmouth, members of the family of the late Right Honorable Rosie Douglas, brothers and sisters, thanks for the warm welcome I have received here in Portsmouth. I know that while the entire region and the wider world mourns the passing of our fallen comrade, no single group of persons anywhere feels it more than you, the people of Portsmouth. In good times and in bad times, you were with Rosie and Rosie was with you. In trials and triumphs, you stood by Rosie and Rosie stood by you. In times of sorrow and in times of joy, you shared your feelings and emotions with Rosie, and Rosie shared his with you. I can therefore understand how his sudden passing would have impacted on this closely knit community of Portsmouth and it. I share the pain of the people of Portsmouth, for like you, I have lost a comrade, a brother, a friend, a leader, a mentor, and a great source of inspiration. Perhaps the most fitting tribute I have heard in relation to the character of the man Rosie Douglas was shared by the Prime Minister of St. Lucia when he said, Rosie has never met a person that he did not like or could not get along with. It will be months and perhaps years before we can appreciate the full extent of the work Comrade Rosie did in the past 8 months. For several of the seeds he sowed are still germinating. But I am confident that the fruits of his labor will impact significantly and positively upon the development of this country and touch the lives of each and every one of us. Thank you. And as I say goodnight to you, we can look forward to be here together again tomorrow when we bid the final farewell to the body of Rosie, because we know his spirit will continue to live among us. I thank you very much and good night.
When a friend dies, depending on how you hear the news, the impact strikes you or hits you at different times. And when my wife, who is a Dominican, who says Jal Dominic Labelle, trying to find me on one of my field days to tell me that Vic Riviere had called me to tell me that Rosie Douglas had passed away, I did not believe her. And I am still in the state of disbelief, as you've heard earlier on. And so tonight, I come in advance of the official party from St. Lucia. Tomorrow, the entire cabinet of St. Lucia is arriving. The entire cabinet of St. Lucia is arriving tomorrow to mourn with you, to mourn with the government and the people of Dominica the passing of a great son of the world, a great son of Dominica. Dominica has given the world one of the most outstanding peacemaker ever. And I want Dominicans to know, those of you who particularly knew Rosie Douglas well, that Rosie Douglas wasn't about himself, he was never about himself. He traveled wherever there was trouble in the world. He traveled wherever there was strife. And very often, people acknowledged him because of his sincerity of purpose, because of the way he cared for peace, because of the way he cared for the less unfortunate people of the world. Unfortunately, in the Caribbean and perhaps in other parts of the world as well, we only say people were good when they're dead. I would like those of us who are here today to do the little that we can to correct this, to try and appreciate the good things that people do, and to try and perhaps correct the bad things that they do instead of discounting them totally. Those of us who are here this afternoon, this evening, must pledge ourselves to remember the humility, to remember the concern, to remember the sincerity of Rosie in all he did.
From all the progressive people of Barbados who loved and respected our brother Rosie Douglas. I hope you will forgive me if I say to you tonight that just as much as Rosie Douglas was your Rosie, many of us in Barbados considered him to be our Rosie too. Many were the times that Rosie Douglas sat with us in Barbados and discussed the political and socio-economic development of our country. He perhaps knew that development even better than some of us. Rosie Douglas did not only belong to Dominica, he belonged to all of us. Rosie Douglas was what we can call a world historical personality. What I mean by that is that here was a man whose life and career was integrally connected to the historical development and movement forward of the entire world. I can tell you this because there are many occasions, many events, many forums that I have shared with Rosie Douglas. For example, I have shared with Rosie Douglas on the continent of Africa in Uganda. I have shared events and forums with Rosie Douglas on the continent of Asia, in Korea. I have shared with Rosie Douglas in Latin America, in Cuba. I have shared with Rosie Douglas in Barbados. He belonged to all of us. He was a world historical personality. And I say to you that we must be conscious that the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean of the 1960s gave us several world historical personalities. Guyana gave us the great Walter Rodney. Trinidad gave us the great Stokely Carmichael. Jamaica gave us the great Robert Nesta Bob Marley. Grenada gave us the great Maurice Bishop. And Dominica gave us the great Rosie Douglas.
Of the World Mathaba, we are here to pay tribute to a great Dominican, a great Caribbean, and a great worldwide figure. And it is this last aspect, his international activity, which I am here to emphasize as representative of the World Mathaba, the organization of progressive and revolutionary forces throughout the world, of which Rosie Douglas was a founder member 20 years ago, and of which during these last 20 years he was a most active, constant, and loyal participant in the activities of the World Mathaba. He was in the front line of the struggle against colonialism and imperialism. He was in the front line of the struggle for freedom everywhere throughout the world. Especially, he was in the front line of the struggle for the Black Africa and the Caribbean and the ethnic groups in the Americas. In every struggle, he was active and dynamic. And it is now that he has recently, up to 1.5 months ago, made his contribution to the development of the World Mathaba in the present circumstances facing the world.
The world. It saddens me that we have to meet under such unfortunate circumstances. And I want to start by expressing my gratitude to the people of Dominica for the tremendous love, respect, and support that they've shown to me. Without such support, I don't know how I would have made it through this ordeal. So I'd like Dominicans to give themselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. I had a great opportunity to travel through the streets of Portsmouth and see the glimmer in the eyes of the little boys and girls, men and women, supporters of Rosie over the years, and the love that was exuded from their pores unto me and unto my family was unprecedented. And I know that Rosie is looking down upon us right now with pride because he believed in you, the people of Dominica. He believed in your ability to carry forward his agenda of modernization. He believed in the passion that it would take to unify the Caribbean as a trading bloc to compete effectively in spite of unfair trading barriers initiated by the World Trade Organization, and to continue to struggle to fight and survive as the world continues to change. My father was a very misunderstood man in Canada. As a young boy, I frequently had the opportunity to spend time with him, and not only was he committed as a politician, but he was committed as a family man and as a dad. All right?
We have been experiencing a significant decrease in the number of violent incidents and activities among our young people. But as we continue to struggle and grapple with the economy, which we know is very, very bad, as we continue to struggle with the use of drugs and abuse of drugs, as we continue to struggle to make a better life for Dominican youth, it is much more important now that we attempt to get our young people occupied in doing something really meaningful. And I believe that through the Dominica Cadet Corps, we'll be able to instill that level of discipline, communication skills, and encouragement that the young people would need to move forward in this very trying period. And so for all these reasons, I want on behalf of the Minister of Youth Affairs, on behalf of the young people of this country, to thank Gabriel Christian for having made this valuable gesture towards the development of the Dominica Cadet Corps. I'm also very happy and gratified that people like Arkwright Birmingham and Mr. Richards could still show some interest in making that movement functional. We hope that government in itself will be able to complement the contribution that is being made today by Gabriel Christian and that will be made by former members of the Dominica Cadet Corps. On behalf of the government of Dominica, on behalf of the young people of Dominica, on behalf of the Minister of Youth and Sports, I want to commend you, Gabo, for a very valuable donation, and we look forward to working very closely with you. I know that it is your dream to see that Cadet Corps on drill in November. Mr. Rich, I think it's going to be difficult, but you think it's possible. And I like the notion that if we keep postponing it, we may never get it off the ground. So why not start now and see how far we get? And like I told you last night, if we don't make it for November, then we'll do a series of concerts during Christmas. So once again, let me thank you, Gabo.
I'd like, at this time, for us to have just a little moment of silence for a great Dominican whose funeral I came to our blessed country to attend yesterday afternoon. My dear uncle, L.M. Christian, who was founder of the Dominica musical class and the writer of the musical score of our national anthem, Isle of Beauty, in whose name today I make this tribute to our national development, the moment of silence. As a disciplinarian, he was my uncle, he was a great Dominican. And as I make this tribute in his name, I want to congratulate the fighters for national development like Mr. Richards and Mr. Birmingham, who over the past 20 or so years of the inactivity, rather the near death of the Cadet Corps concept, were able to maintain a vision that we would have someday in the very near future an organization that would be suit and able, disciplined and trained to serve the national development priorities of our state. No serious country, brothers and sisters, Prime Minister, no serious country can in fact prosper if its youth are indisciplined, not focused, at their wits' end, enmeshed in drugs and gratuitous violence. As an attorney in the Washington metropolitan area, I must say that some of the biggest problems that now afflict the community are problems associated with kids who frankly are not organized and have too much time on their hands, and as we all know from our parents, the idle person who's frankly not into anything substantive provides the environment for the devil's workshop. Thank you and God bless you.
Some form of progressive training for cadets and to instill and inculcate a sense of national pride and self-reliance and self-confidence and love for country, of course, and a love for people of Dominica as a whole. So, and then the major focus, therefore, by way of training is not going to only focus on paramilitary, but also on things like communication skill and safety, water safety, first aid, etc., etc. And again, it's in keeping with the fundamental principle of this new administration to maximize the skills and talent of the young people so that they can dissipate the energy into something that makes sense instead of drugs and violence. So let me just call Mr. Francis Edward.
I've been looking for this occasion for a very, very, very long time, 20 years now. I mean, since, well, my training, my basic academic background was at the Dominica Grammar School There I became a cadet, and I rose through the ranks. Today I think I'm probably the senior officer of the Dominica Cadet Corps. The Dominica Cadet Corps started somewhere in 1910. It has had a very illustrious history up till about 1980, where it went to sleep for a while, went into hibernation. For 20 years, I've been trying to talk to people, anybody who would listen, about why we should revive the Cadet Corps. I think I am what I am today, and Mr. Christian will tell you more about it. He'll probably tell you the same thing. Mr. Birmingham will tell you the same thing. Mr. Andrew will tell you the same thing. That we are what we are today because at some point in time we were exposed to the cadet program. So today, Mr. Christian has found it fit to put some action to all of these thoughts that we have been having over the years as to how and what we have to do to get this program back on stream. And today we can see a manifestation of it, tangible manifestation right in front of us. So good to see this. I have a number of ex-cadets who are waiting in the wings, trying to find the time. We're biding our time. When everybody's asking me, when do we start? What do we do? What do we have to do? I have with me, there were times when I lost faith. I said, okay, that's it, I've given up. I've tried everything. But I had people like Mr. Andrew and Mr. Birmingham says, no way, we're not going to give up.
Dr. Christian, his brother, these are youth, I mean, just 20 years ago, when we were struggling for independence here, these are youth that were still at school, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to work with them on the whole independence campaign. Because that independence campaign at the time gave us a certain pride, a certain direction, a certain responsibility as young people. And a lot of it came from the discipline that we received, because I too, in 1958-59, was a cadet, a packer sergeant in the Cadet Corps at the Dominica Grammar School. And before that, I was for 4 years as a scout. We had a scout troop at the grammar school. I was a member of the scout troop. And they insisted that I couldn't finish my primary and secondary education without being in the Cadet Corps, so I joined the Cadet Corps. And in quick time, in 2 years, I learned the drills and everything about the Cadet Corps. And I was promoted to sergeant. And I really can say that it left a certain amount of discipline and purpose in me, which I still have. So what we're saying, every one of us here, therefore, who are here, except maybe Reggie. I don't know if Reggie was in the Cadet Corps. But you know, he walks kind of fast as if he was in the Cadet Corps. Somebody might feel Reggie can drill. I don't know if, you know. But you're always walking fast, you know. Anyway, we have a certain passion for that kind of discipline. And I believe now that as an independent country, with the beautiful environment that we have, with the beautiful ecological tourism potential that we have, the Cadet Corps has to then define itself in a new light. In other words, the young cadets are the young pioneers, the ones who have to conquer the interior of Dominica, to overcome the pitfalls. There are so many Dominicans who have not been to the Boiling Lake, for example, who have not been to many beautiful sites in Dominica. And I think the Cadet Corps, in a sense, you have a pioneering role. A new Cadet Corps will have a pioneering role to help finish the discovery of Dominica and to overcome and to challenge sometimes the inhospitable environment of Dominica, where you will recall way back in the period of the Boer Wars. During the Boer Wars, the British government at one stage felt that during the war, they felt that they wanted to move the Boers during the war to get them out to an inhospitable place, set up an information technology center in the Caribbean. And an organization like the Cadet Corps will be key in terms of disciplining our youth to recognize that we have to skip over, literally leapfrog over stages of development to arrive at full technological development and compliance with that kind of environment, which we call the ecotourism capital of the world. You know, so that this small function which is happening here may seem insignificant, but in fact it's very significant because it is the very essence of Dominica. Dominica cannot develop with without that kind of pride, without that kind of tenacity among our young people. And it is from our young people it's going to come. So today really, therefore, we're challenging the drug barons and we're telling them we believe that we can augment the work of school and church and other social organizations by introducing this core and the instruments that are presented here today are a clarion call to tell those who now prevent and obstruct and divert our youth from the task of national development that we are not giving up, that we are coming at you, and we are coming at, they would say, full force with bow and arrow.
Where lives were torn apart, you called out to our country and you whispered to those in pain, now you belong to heaven, and the stars spell out your name. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will. Loveliness we've lost, these empty days without your smile, this torch we'll always carry for our nation's golden child. And even though we try, the truth brings us to tears, all our words cannot express.
I, Rosie Douglas, do swear or solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of Prime Minister without fear of favor, affection, or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So help me God.
Candles burned out long before your legend ever will. Your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will.
October 14th, a Saturday in the history of the Commonwealth of Dominica, as we begin the final journey that will lay the late Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Douglas, who was more popularly referred to as Rosie, to his final resting place. He would have been celebrating his 59th birthday tomorrow, Sunday, but as fate would have it, he's been called to his eternal rest. We at the Government Information Service will bring you the full ceremony from the cortege moving through Bay Street in his hometown of Portsmouth in the north of Dominica to the Roman Catholic Church for the funeral service, and then to Hampstead at the family's estate for the burial. The cortege is led by 4 outriders from the Dominica Police Service. Immediately following them is the Music Lovers Government Band. Behind them are 2 platoons of officers of the Dominica Police Services forming the honor guard. There is the hearse, which holds the body, the mortal remains of the late Prime Minister. And immediately after that is the family, his mother, brothers, sisters, his children, officials who've come from far and near, from hometown Portsmouth, Dominica, the Caribbean, the Americas, and the wider world. The people of the town of Portsmouth and those who've come from all parts of Dominica to pay their last respects reflect the true nature of the gentleman who was Dominica's 5th Prime Minister. A true community person. And persons have come out and have lined the streets with solemn faces for a last look to say their final adieu to someone who in many respects was dear to them, that they had over the short period of time that he was Prime Minister, 8 months, that they had come to love and appreciate for the sort of vision and the sort of plan that he had begun to articulate that would begin a sort of radical transformation of the Commonwealth of Dominica. As some people, fate or the circumstances would have it, the good Lord had other designs and other ideas, because when this chapter in Dominica's history is chronicled, there will be several paragraphs dedicated to the life and times of Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Douglas, who would probably have wanted me to refer to him in this context as Rosie. He was Dominica's 5th Prime Minister since Dominica attained independence, November 3rd of 1978. And in his lifetime, Rosie set many firsts, including the fact that he is, to date, Dominica's 1st Prime Minister to actually die in office. His tenure as the national political leader of the first ever coalition government has been of a very short duration. A mere 8 months, which spanned from February 1st to October 1st, 2000. But it is true to say that more than anything, it is the tremendous impact that he has generated in this short space of time that has made Dominica, the Caribbean, and the world feel and experience the profound sense of loss that they are. The news first rippled through Dominica and spread like wildfire through the Caribbean and across the world October 1st, it's 2 Sundays ago. And every national in this country, beautiful nature island, the Commonwealth of Dominica, their initial reaction has always, from the interviews that I've conducted, been the same. A sense of disbelief was the initial reaction. No one believed that Rosie was dead. Many said that they would not have believed until they actually saw the body and had touched it to confirm, maybe like the doubting Thomas in scriptures, that this in fact was the case. And emotions poured out that Sunday, and in the subsequent 2 weeks, approximately to today, the condolences and the messages of comfort have come from far and wide across the length and breadth of this globe, because as an individual, as a human being, he transcended all boundaries. He transcended all barriers, whether they were of demarcations of
Bonam